Well, I'm excited today to have Ingrid on the Flower Podcast. Welcome, Ingrid.
I'm super excited too, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I know we're trying to work this out for a little while, and with holidays and then New Year stuff and all the kind of stuff. I'm just glad that now we're able to do it. Uh,
Me too.
and so you've, as we were talking before, you've obviously traveled to, you've lived in how many different countries?
Six different
Oh my
countries.
goodness. So this should be an exciting story, but how did you fall in love with doing flowers?
It was sort of by chance. I was a graphic designer, but I had also worked in events, and I worked for the Swedish Chamber of Commerce in New York. Went back to arts and went to art school. And years later, my old boss reached out and asked me if I wanted to do flowers for an event with the King and Queen of Sweden. And I was like, "Why are you asking me? I don't know anything about flowers."
How bizarre.
But she said, yeah, and she's like, no, but you're really good with concepts and you have a great eye, so I took on the project, and it was a farm to fork gala dinner with a summit also. And I mean, farm to fork, this is 8 years ago now. I was working with a company at the time that uses a lot of salvaged wood and built furniture out of that salvage wood, and I took their scraps and built these crates and filled it with artichoke and crown dill and flowers and brought it to this tasting, and then they just loved it. The flowers matched the menu. There was a Swedish chef and it matched the menu, and at the event a woman came in and she was like crying because she loved the flowers so much. And I realized that maybe this is something I should do, so I figured I would do it on the side, and still work with my graphic design because I was doing that, branding and graphic design. And it just blew up really, really fast. In a few months, I had a book deal in Europe. A year later, I was featured as
Wow.
florist in New York Magazine. That helped to like the trajectory a lot. I was biking around here with a lot of leftovers, like actually immediately after that event, and I can't stand seeing flowers go in the trash bin. I mean, to this day, like it hurts my body. So I was biking around here. I had a big basket, and my daughter, because my daughter calls it my pizza delivery bike, and I was biking around Red Hook and giving out flowers, and event planners saw them and asked me if I wanted to do events. So if that's sort of, those are all the things that happened simultaneously, sort of in a way, and things just went really fast, and it became more than a full-time job.
So,
So
so were you in Sweden at this point, or were you just
I was in New York, in
you were in New
Brooklyn,
York and
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn?
Yeah,
And then, okay, so I'm sorry, I'm thought I was
don't worry.
following pretty well. And then, okay, so you were there, and I mean, how amazing. So how long did it take for you to transition into just doing flowers?
Well, I think it took not more than a few months. Like I found
That's
a space,
crazy.
I swapped spaces. So I was working out of these woodworkers warehouse, and I just took some like plastic drop cloth and put in an AC because I was always scared about temperature control. Even though I didn't know much about flowers, I realized that it was important.
Right.
And so I found this really cheap space that I'm still in to this day, even though I keep taking over other spaces in the same space. But it's just it was this tiny little, I don't even know, 10 by 15 feet room. And then I built a makeshift cooler with a cool bot. And I think probably 6, 7, like a year in, I was doing, events from Wet Chandon, like the book, like full-time
Wow.
florist, basically. With that said, I had never been a flower shop, always events. In the beginning, I thought I was going to be selling like little bouquets from my bike, but this is New York and we have to pay the bills. I can't, this isn't some hobby for me. Like I'm a single mom, and I couldn't, like, this was a way for me to make money also. I mean, a lot of people
Sure.
romanticize working with flowers. but as you know, Scott, it's a lot of hard work. And it was that I have a very strong love for flowers, as I mentioned, but at the same time, it's a lot of hard work. And you know, you have to pay the bills. So I learned pretty fast how to, you know, have bigger numbers come in rather than just a lot of smaller numbers, basically.
Sure. So have you weddings and events, obviously that's a different kind of category.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's its own category. But
Yeah.
did you do, being in New York, I know a lot of people who do that also do like weeklies, whether it's a
Yep.
restaurants or corporate work. Did you do that too?
Yes. So I would say I know that about 90, let me see, 75% of our business is corporate in the beginning. And then we moved into more weeklies. Now I don't know the percentage, but we do have two really big weekly accounts on Fridays, like very substantial weekly accounts.
Hmm.
And then we have corporate is the majority. We don't take on a lot of weddings. I love weddings, but I don't want to be a wedding factory. So we are very specific who we work with.
Sure.
Basically, we want to make sure our vision matches. So we typically, you know, pre-pandemic, I would say we were doing about 6 to 8 weddings per year, but they would be big weddings.
Wow.
So and then I would say we were, you know, on regular like last in 2019, if that's the, wait, 2018, 2019, you know, 5 to 6 events per week was not, you know, nothing unheard of. A lot of big installations, a lot of repeat clients. We did a lot. Viacom is one of our clients, so like MTV, VH1, Nickelodeon. We've been working with them for eight years now. And same with Burberry. We do pop-ups in their stores. You know, we'll set up a whole flower shop for Mother's Day in 5, 6 stores around New York, and Staten Island, New Jersey. Like they, you know, we shipped out a lot of flowers also now, like wreaths over the holiday, hundreds of wreaths over the holidays. So that's another big client. But most of our clients we worked with almost from the beginning, and a lot of event planners. And then we have some really wonderful wedding planners that we work with till this day also. So
Wow, that's great. I mean, I feel like so many times people either, I don't want to say look down, but I think people kind of forget about this corporate world and the corporate event side of what they do. And
yeah.
I think how great that that is such a, is or was such a big part of your business, because I mean, right there in New York City, and that whole, you know, how many that, you know, international headquarters are located in New York City, tons. So
Right, right. There's so many promotional
yeah,
events here, and it's the presence here and meeting the right people here. So, you know, it might be, I'm still waiting to show pictures of that, but we did, you know, like a James Bond premiere or a new champagne launches, you know, like that's always happening here. So for me, those are often like really fun projects because they're always conceptual. The same thing, we work with a lot of museums, like the new museum is one of our clients, and they always want to use like an artist as the main source of the inspiration. So that's
sure,
always like super conceptual. So as like someone who went to Parsons like art school and loves working with concepts, corporate was always like really fun. And that's why I was like hesitant when it came to weddings. But I did have this planner come in, and she came in with this bride who was, she came in and she's like, I want it to be like an Eva Hesse sculpture hanging from the ceiling, and then I want bugs. And I was like, I like this bride. She sounds like fun. Let's do it. And that's sort of how we started working with weddings. And so, you know, if you look in my Instagram feed, we don't have a ton of like wedding pictures. I really love working with concepts. So like I said, we do weddings for sure. And we do, you know, we do lots of just beautiful weddings, but I love working with concepts. So that's why I'm very drawn to the corporate clients and
sure.
museums and those like,
Yeah. You know, I feel like when this whole COVID thing hit, you know, people, a lot of people got hit hard, because they maybe lost the walk-in business or the wedding and event business. Um, I know that a lot of companies obviously are now everyone's telecommuting and working from home. I can only assume that that's impacted your corporate accounts as well.
Absolutely. It was a huge, I mean, I was
Wow.
on the day they banned events in New York. I was on my way to the Frick. I had a truck full of flowers, probably, $5,000 worth of flowers wholesale. Um, and we were going to the Frick to do a young fellows ball. And they just called and said we have to cancel the event. So I had a whole truck, and the same day we were going to shoot behind the scenes for my upcoming book, and for Abrams. And all right, I understood immediately that this is serious. Like, this is not that, I mean, there's no way this is just some little thing that's going to be for a couple weeks or a couple months. And yeah, it was scary because our main business, I would say, like, I would say 90% of our business is just like events, we don't do retail. So it's all of our business basically. So that's when I started selling flower boxes across the country, and selling classes basically. And I do that a lot with corporate clients now, so it's tied in to my old
Oh,
clients
interesting.
actually. Yeah.
Mm.
So we do,
So,
they'll do events where they team building events and stuff like that for
oh,
YouTube and Google, and yeah.
how fascinating. So, okay, so how long did it take you to kind of make that transition? I hate to use the word pivot, but whatever, to make that transition, because like all of a sudden you have these flowers in a truck, and what to do with them, I know is a whole nother topic. But
So
yeah.
no, we did bring majority of the flowers to back to the Frick, and they actually gave them out to people because, like I said, I can't, I wouldn't ever toss those flowers, put them in the garbage. So we offered to bring them over in like buckets, and they had people come and grab the flowers, luckily. And then we actually took a bunch of flowers also to another event venue where I'm close friends with them, and asked if we could borrow the venue so we could still use some flowers and shoot a few. I did a little small scale like installation with watermelon as a base for my hydration system. I shot that for my next book there, because I had to do another shoot because I had a lot of people lined up for my book, because I'm shooting tastemakers, basically for my next book. So I had people lined up that I knew I wasn't going to be able to shoot, and we had to cancel a bunch of shoots for my book. So it was really rough. And the blessing in disguise, I mean, everyone is saying this. I'm sure you've heard this from other florists, but was this just selling boxes of flowers to people, and being able to connect to people that way, and just genuinely see how happy flowers make people. Even when you're not in the same room, you can still get that feeling. It's been something really special, Scott.
Mm. So, so you did the box shipping part. How many weeks did it take you to get that set up? Because I mean, I would imagine there's like websites to do, or there's
Yeah.
changing a
Well,
platform, or to take
yeah.
money and things.
Yeah, well, I had a shop portion on my site. Basically,
Oh,
we
okay.
sell we so I say that I'm not a retail florist, but we do sell um arrangements on the website, on our website. But it just doesn't equal the same amount we do in terms of
Right.
events. If there's a big event budget versus a $300 arrangement, but we do a lot of custom arrangements. So I had a shop portion on my website already, so it was pretty easy. And
That's good.
because I had, yeah, and because I had already shot a flower recipe book. Basically, some people are like, "What's a flower recipe book?" But I'm sure most people listening to your podcast understand what that means. But because I had already done a flower recipe book, and I'm used to putting together recipes that way, for consumer and people that don't work with flowers, it was pretty easy for me to like create recipes. And then the one challenge was shooting video because I'd never done that before, and I'm still working that out. But that was the one challenge. But other than in the beginning, I was only doing live classes that I sold separately. Now we include the videos with the box, but um, yeah. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So, I mean, it was fairly easy because you already had this system in place with your website.
Yeah,
So that was kind of nice.
exactly.
And so, what does a flower box look like? So, when somebody orders one, is it a mixed box of stems, or
Yeah,
is it how does that work? And I know you just got done saying that they can get a video now, so they can you walk them through how to do the design. But
yeah.
what's in the
So
box? How does that work?
basically you get around 60 stems, but we do say that just for peace of mind, make sure that you know that maybe 3 or 4 stems might be wilted or broken, because that's typical for us florists as well. And then so it's typically, I would say, 5 to 6 different types of flowers, because I mean, usually my arrangements have a wide range of different flowers, not just like 2 or 3 types. So we like to create a nice mix of flowers, but still very strong focus on the color palette, and trying to include unusual flowers that you wouldn't be able to get like at your local florist shop, which, I mean, that's a challenge. But in this last box, there was like blackberry branches and these like really special anemones and toffee roses. It's not something
Oh, wow.
most people can get their hands on. Yeah. So that has been really fun for people, because that's the one thing they say is like, wow, these flowers, I've never seen anything like this, because this isn't something I hear as much. I mean, I still hear it a lot in New York, because I do think that one of my strengths is picking out something that looks a little different or unusual, at least to consumers. We're always, as florists, we have all these like flower followers on Instagram that are florists. So you're always like, think you're only speaking to florists, but you're really not. So, but with that said, a lot of people are just like, I've never seen anything like this, because that's the beauty of like actually reaching out to across the country. And I get like, just on Friday, this woman called me and she said, she had some issue because like, so they get a booklet. It's a 60-page booklet, so there's a lot of recipes and care tips, and I spec like I tell them exactly what to do with each flower type. I also set expectations. So I say, when you get these flowers, they might look wilted and almost dead because they've been traveling for days, but flowers are super resilient. Like, you're going to want to let them drink for a day, just like we
Right.
us florists do. And so now they know, you're setting their expectations, and that has been super helpful. But I also offer a hotline, and my
Really?
studio manager was like, don't take that out, like you get so many calls. And I'm like, you know what, this is my only chance to connect with people, and I actually really enjoy it. And because on Friday, this woman called, she's like, it was our 40th anniversary, and my husband gave me this as a gift, and it was the best gift I ever got. She told me. So I was like crying, because those calls mean so
Wow.
much to me now, like, especially because we can't create that wow moment in a room with our installations where people are just like blown away because, there's some crazy 18-foot chandelier like that. I love that kick, and I love that connection with people. And that's also, why my next book is about flowers and people. So I love those calls. But Ashley's like, you shouldn't have a hotline. But I want people to be able to reach out when they get the box, to make sure that, that if they don't know how, I mean, sometimes I don't know how to condition the flowers. I ask my wholesalers all the time. That's how I learned everything I know about flowers, is just asking and asking. So I want to be able to offer the same thing to people who order the boxes, basically. So
Well, and it's
it's been
so,
really fun.
yeah. I mean, people are trying to connect, and what a great way to connect with the flowers, with the people. And the other thing is sometimes having a phone number, like they may never even use the number, but knowing there is a number,
Yeah,
makes them kind of have a peace of mind about it. But gosh, the flowers that you just mentioned, I know there's florists in different parts of the country that have a hard time even getting those flowers, like toffee roses.
true.
And here
Right.
they are in your box. And what a great treat to send to somebody. I mean, what
Yeah. I mean, I've worked for years, creating these relationship with my wholesalers. I mean, I speak directly to some of the farmers before I get my flowers, like in New Jersey, and I'll ask them what colors are available, back and forth. And the wholesalers and farms go above and beyond to help out and make sure that we're sending out something really special. There's been definitely hiccups, and that's why I haven't been pushing these that much. They're just, doing well anyways, but I've not like done any marketing, to be honest, because it's scary. It's a definitely super scary because I can't control it. So that's sort of part of my control, the control freak in me, like having, offering my people to be able to call me. That helps with my peace of mind because, that way I have offered, you can reach out. You didn't reach out, so you can't really say much so that sort of gives me peace of mind. But again, I do really enjoy like talking to people about flowers. So it's not really, it's weird on a Saturday morning when I'm having breakfast with my daughter, and then I get this like text message like my roses look weird, but it's fine. It's fine.
That's amazing. I love that so much actually, because I just feel like, um, I don't know. I had an experience recently where I was trying to solve some issue with an app, and unfortunately couldn't get a human being, and by the time you send an email and maybe they got back to me 3 or 4 days later, by then
Yeah.
I'd figured it out, which maybe that's their whole point. But at
Right.
the time I was really frustrated because I was on a deadline, which I missed. But anyway, it's all good. But
No, but the
I think
thing
it's
is,
really
like,
cool.
we can't walk into a store like, and there you have that interaction. So I do think it's important to have that like personal, whatever you want to call it, service or
Right.
interaction, and I mean, it is lonely now. So it's nice to like, even just like those calls usually end up being like an hour or something, and I've made a lot of new friends all across the country. So it's been like, I genuinely mean it when I say this. It's been so amazing.
That's awesome. And so does it go? Do you have a box like once a month or once every other week
Yeah.
or yeah?
Yeah, because I put a lot of effort into taking photos and making sure that when I promote the boxes that I'm showing as much as I possibly can show the product that they're going to receive. So it's
Mhm.
not just, oh, it's a box of flowers, which is fine. I mean, that would be great if I could do that. But again, I want people to know what they're getting. Because I personally don't think I would just buy, or maybe I would, but I mean, people want to make sure that things work with their decor and all that. So I make sure to like post a lot of pictures of the actual product, and then I include it in the book so that it's a PDF. But when I say book, it's an electronic book.
Right.
But it is a beautiful book with like amazing close-ups, and then pictures of arrangements step by step. I teach like how to flex a tulip or how to, things like that. And so there's a lot of time spent on the photography, which I do myself, and then the video, and like just sourcing the stuff and testing it, making sure like I actually get it in advance, make sure it will hold up a longer time than just a day or two. So I just want to test the product. So it's just a lot of work. And so a lot of people have been asking, can it be a weekly subscription? And at the moment, I just don't feel I have enough help here, because that's the other issue now with the pandemic is like I can't have a bunch of staff. I don't want to have a bunch of staff here. I don't want people to feel uncomfortable. So we're keeping it very like everyone's sort of working from home. If there is a team here, it's like one or two people and we stay in different rooms, like just because people are scared. And so,
Yeah. Especially in New York.
yeah, yeah, so we're just being very cautious. And with that said, I don't have a lot of help. So I'm doing all the weekly, I do all the work, like I clean all the bucket. Like usually I wouldn't even barely be making arrangements, to be honest. I just go in and art direct. So with, now I'm doing everything. So it's sort of like when I started out 7 years ago, again, 8 years ago again. And it's fine, but it is definitely a lot of work. And so to answer your question, I always go off on tangents, but to answer your question, I think we're going to work on a weekly box eventually, but right now it's monthly.
Well, I can totally see where you might have, um, like one box a month has the video, has the how-to content, and maybe for your regular people who just enjoy playing with flowers, you have another box every, maybe, so you have a box every other week, kind of, and then that person just orders the box, and then you don't have to do as much for that box because it's just
Yeah.
strictly the flower box. But I feel
I
like,
just got an email
yeah,
from a client who she suggested it twice, and I feel really bad. I'm like, okay, we're looking into it. So I do think that and that's actually what we're doing. March, April, we're going to do the same box twice. We can. There are ways to do that. So absolutely, I do think it's a good idea, and especially now that we're also doing these like corporate sort of events. It has been a great product to
yeah,
offer
because I could,
people.
yeah, because I could even imagine, if it's a major corporation and they've got some VIP clients that they want to send a box of flowers to,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
you could do that,
Yep.
and you could do a lot of things. And so, I mean, I'm just kind of hashing this through because I'm sure there's other people in other parts of the world that listen to our podcast that are kind of trying to figure out how to pivot, how to make some kind of income. And of course, you're in a unique situation because you already have relationships with a lot of these corporate entities, and that and different clients, and so
Yeah.
it's natural for you. And I don't know, I feel like it's really a great idea. um,
Hmm.
I know
It
that,
really is. And it's
yeah,
great for that there's such like now you see the accessibility because it always feels like, oh, I'm making all these arrangements with this really special product, but other people can't make this. Like they can't get their hands on this. And
right.
that's why it's really, really cool to actually, be able to do it that way. I mean, we were gonna, yeah, I was gonna go on a different tangent. Let's not go. I was gonna start talking about greenhouses and stuff.
No, it's all good. So, I know we were talking earlier, you were actually in the market this morning in New York City. So, how is New York bouncing back? I mean, obviously, the second wave of garbage how's the market?
It, I mean, to be totally honest, it's really quiet and the prices are high and there's not a lot of turnover, if that's the right word. I see, I mean, I don't, I hate to say this, but right now it's not looking good and it's just not. I don't know
Well,
if people aren't spending money. I don't know
yeah,
why, because to me, like I still have this like little bubble that I'm in where I'm still like sending off stuff on Fridays and I'm doing the boxes, so I'm really busy. So I mean, I saw maybe two or three other florists, and I was there for an hour, 2 hours this morning, and that was it. And it's Friday, and usually for us at least, we're super busy in January. I'm
right.
not sure January is a really busy. No, wait, what is it? It's February.
It's
Sorry.
February now. Yeah,
I
it
don't
seems
know.
like
It should be
January.
busy. It should be busy, but it's not.
Well,
So
I think too, right? We're recording this for people that are listening to the week after Valentine's. And I know
yeah,
sometimes Valentine's is such a heavy period of flower consumption that the week after is a little bit of a speed bump. And
it's
so,
true. But it has been generally quiet, but today was extreme. So, but that you're right. I think that's why, because it was Valentine's last week, right?
right. But New York is New York. I mean, New York is what, the city that
Agreed.
never sleeps except for during a pandemic, and everyone's, and I mean,
It,
it's tough. It's really tough. And
yeah,
and hopefully with the vaccines that are out now and a lot of things that are happening in just a handful of months, not even that, hopefully
yeah,
in a couple months, we'll start seeing
right,
a big difference
right,
for everybody.
exactly.
One of the things I loved when I was looking at your website and just trying to learn more about you before we had our interview, is you have a real passion for sustainable design.
Yeah,
And I noticed even with Flower School New York, that was one of the things that you taught there um, before the pandemic. That it was like these large scale, foam free designs, which is sometimes some of the hardest things to do. I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts or ideas on that, and just how possible is it to do them, because we
yeah.
haven't had a guest in a while that really kind of focused on that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, see, I think because I'm an accidental florist, and I also am like
I love that.
completely, usually fearless. I don't know, I'm a daredevil, I guess. So which gets me in in situations that are exciting but still can be scary. But basically, I don't mind bending the rules or breaking the rules. So I think I do always like to mention who people that have inspired me, and Ariella Shazar is definitely one of them. She's amazing. And I did take a class. I think it was just a compo class with Ariella, but I did see how she built structures with that would have hydration systems instead of using foam.
Right.
And I mean, this is a whole, movement now and all that, but there's a lot of things beyond just foam, first of all, that you can do. But with that said, I did just because I grew up in Sweden, and they're in my opinion they were way ahead. When I moved here 20 years ago, I mean 30 years ago in Sweden, we were putting our batteries in one bin, our paper in one bin, glass, like there was probably like 8 different separation, system things. So I was very used to that mentality. So for me, I mean, I don't even really like talking about it too much because I don't like greenwashing, and I don't want to wear that on my, I don't want to, I think we should just be doing it. I don't think we should be talking about it too much, but I want to talk about it now because there are things that I think are important. But basically with the large scale installation classes are that I just wouldn't use foam. And so I just had to come up with methods that would work for us without using foam.
So, but I mean, I think, and I feel like I love the fact you said that, because for you, what I'm hearing is it is just part of your culture. It's part of the way you grew up,
Yeah,
and it's not like it's a soapbox for you. It's just the way you live and the way you practice, and I think that's really great, because I feel like I look forward to the day when we're all on that page, and I feel like I'm so thankful for the trend that's leading us that way. Uh,
right.
it was
But so
Yeah.
in the in the classes in large scale installations, and how I work usually is I just see each project as is, because every venue is different, the temperature is different, the way you can hang things is going to be different. So I don't just teach one method, I teach people to think differently and to
Mhm.
solve problems. I usually show them techniques at the end, but I usually do a group session, and then I tell them this is what the client wants, this is the venue, these are the, like, it has to be up this many days or whatever it is. I mean, because we do a 10-day show with hanging, giant hanging chandeliers where the flowers have to last for 10 days. So I bring up like real scenarios, and then I ask them to solve it in a couple of groups. They
Mhm.
come back and present, and then I learn stuff from them, and then I teach then I tell them how I would have done it. And so that way it's like there's an interaction, and we learn from each other, because there are still, like, we still don't have always perfect solutions. There's lots of different ways of, there's not just one way to create a hanging install, there's not just one way to build a flower wall. um some people want to come in and just like be told like this is exactly how you do it. That's not how I learned. I learned the hard way. Nobody taught me. I mean, I took classes at flower school, I took the intensive, but then I learned everything on my own. So that's sort of how I teach. And I know a lot of people really appreciate that. And that's why those classes have been really popular, large scale installation classes.
I really appreciate you saying that. I feel like I was listening to one of the rooms over on Clubhouse. I don't know if you've been on Clubhouse yet. Um,
No,
okay, well, we'll talk about that later. I'll have to get you on
yeah,
Clubhouse. But anyway,
good.
someone was sharing a story and I won't get into the whole story just because of time. But the bottom line was, sometimes looking to somebody who um, hasn't ever dealt with that problem, or maybe has another ulterior motive, really was great, because it's like all of a sudden they're looking at the problem with a totally different set of eyes,
Yeah,
and maybe inspired to come up with a totally different solution that the average person maybe never comes up with. And of course, you bring experience to that equation then, and like, okay, well, these are the pros and cons of that. But the great thing is, through collaboration, you end up coming up with some pretty interesting solutions, I'm sure. I love that.
yeah,
That's really great. And you're teaching them how to problem solve, not just follow a recipe, which
right.
um,
Exactly.
is
That's
great.
how I like to teach. So, and yeah, so I'm grateful to Flower School for giving me that opportunity, because I've been able to test a bunch of weird stuff with students. So You know, like we did a thing in LA. And then in hindsight, like someone reached out to me. I think it was Sean Connolly. He's like, "Oh, I saw someone doing that a few years ago," but I mean, that was not something I had seen. I felt like he was like calling me out, but it was a watermelon method. So basically, only for events, because I don't. I mean, I've tested it with sunflowers for a few days, and some flowers will hold up, others won't. But for a one night event, which is something we often do, watermelon just as like to hold your flowers in place and hydrate. But now there is a new, and I don't know if you've heard of this new. I'm sure you have. There's a new type of they don't want it
Um,
to call it foam. It's the mineral that's made out of mineral. Have you tried it?
I haven't tried it. I've been trying to get my hands on some.
I have it here. No, I did a
Agro.
couple.
Oh,
Yeah,
did you?
Agrawell. Yeah, so I emailed them so I could include it in my book. So I did shoot for my book. I did a little how to with it, and it works really well.
That's awesome. Yeah, because it's made out of like a mineral. And
Mineral, yeah, but it's 100% natural.
yeah, yeah, I love
Yeah,
it. No, it's really great. And I'm
yeah.
excited to see people using it because then we
Hmm.
can get some real feedback on it. And
Yeah.
that's great. No, that's
Yeah, I
really
have
cool.
some here, and I promised them to shoot. I was one of the first person, like people here, to get my hands on it, but I promised to shoot a video with it. But then I just got so busy. This was back in like a couple months ago, or maybe 6 months ago, and I feel so bad because I didn't shoot the video yet. But I'm going to shoot a video, so I'll be posting it on my Instagram pretty soon, I hope.
Yeah. Well, let me
Just
know
how it
because
works. It's
well, sure.
really different from foam, but it's still like the same principle. And I think it's great for people who are very used to using foam and find it difficult to move on to different alternative. And so it's a great way to like just transition into something that's all natural.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's great. I mean, I feel like I can't wait to see that. So no pressure on that. Okay. So
Right? No, I mean it's
um,
like I've like, oh,
love
it's
it.
in a box, and I'm like, nobody touched that stuff. Like if it
Yeah,
gets lost, because they
it's like
shipped it to me from
gold.
Holland. Yeah.
Ugh,
Right.
I know. I've been seeing a lot of that pop up on social media in different places and people trying it in different ways. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
I definitely want to get my hands on some as well. Maybe
you
they're
will. Yeah.
listening now and they'll send me
Right.
some.
Exactly.
So that would be great. One of the things we haven't really dug into too much on the podcast. And I do feel like it's a topic I really want to get into with you because I noticed on one of your blog posts you were expressing some concerns and your thoughts on this whole bleach and painted product movement. I don't want to say movement, but trend, maybe a trend that's
Yeah,
out
it's a trend. It's a
there.
very strong trend. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember seeing it. I think Italian Ruscus was probably the first thing I saw it with it.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 years ago, maybe
Yeah.
with the
Fern.
pandemic, I don't even know. Maybe you're right. You're absolutely right. It was from Japan. We saw some ferns.
Right. And
That
it
were supposed
smelled terrible.
to.
And it smells terrible. Yeah. And now
Yeah.
there's everything bleached. So it's one of those things that I always hesitate to talk about. But it is, there's a book, Flower Confidential, and in
Mhm.
there you can read more about. I mean, I'm sure you've read it, but it's bleached 3 to 4 times in bleach. So I don't, like I said, it's hard to know exactly what's good for the environment and not. But something like that, where it's like so obvious, I decided to just never touch it again. A couple years ago, I have used it in entire installations, like really big installations, before I really understood how bad it was. And I feel really bad about it. To be honest, it's like a little confession here, but it's
It's
true.
okay. You can tell me. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I mean it's like super. I mean, I don't even honestly feel bad, because I made the decision not to use it, and I made the decision to start talking about it and talking about the fact that it's, so bringing it to other people's aware, like making people aware, because so I see it. If there's one thing I see a lot of, and this has to do with supply and demand, and in this case it also has to do with the fact that wholesalers are having a hard time pushing products. So like dried flowers do make sense because it's not fresh, so it can lay on the shelf for a while. So um anything dried is fine, but if it's bleached, I just don't, I won't use it. And I just see so many people selling it and using it, and I've even seen people that call themselves sustainable florists using it now, and I just think it's really sad to be honest.
Well,
But
no, I understand, but though at the same time, I know that when it first came out, I don't know that anybody. I mean, obviously, it didn't smell very great, but obviously, I don't know that the first reaction was, "Oh, wow, what's the chemical process
right,
used to
right.
make it?" And so a
No,
lot
and
of
that's what I'm saying.
people, yeah, yeah, I think a lot of times people
Yeah.
just didn't know, and
No, it
I
was just
think
like,
that's
this is
great.
super cool. This looks so cool. I want to use this because it was exciting. And like I said,
Dude,
like I've used it many times. Like I, not many times, but I've used a great deal of it. And I think it's just, I just want to bring it to people's attention that it's really like bleached 3 times. Basically, that's all I want to say. Like it's just, I would say don't use it if you can avoid it.
right?
And same thing with spray painting stuff. I mean, myself, again, I have spray painted many, many things, and I still do. I mean, we paint things with other stuff, and we wear clothes that are dyed and bleed, whatever, like there's definitely everywhere we go. But if I know that there's an alternative, why not use that? So I again was teaching a class, and I've been asked to paint, like use paint, use painted things many times. And for years, I was trying to find an alternative to the floral spray paint that's pretty toxic. And I did. I eventually found this amazing paint, and it's called Sugar. It's made of sugar cane, and it's still in an aerosol can. So aerosol can is probably not the best, but it's still made from an organic material instead of a toxic material, and it dries super, super fast, very opaque and super matte, and it comes in a lot of different colors. So I'm just bringing this to everyone's attention because I get emails almost every day, people asking. I used to use to do big installations, painted installations, and it's really amazing because it dries fast, and you can, you don't have that smell. And yeah, so that's the paint. And then I just say avoid bleach
Mm.
and avoid foam.
Well, and I think that people can make those steps to definitely improve things for themselves. But I'm fascinated about the paint. I've never heard of this paint,
Yeah.
and I guess I've been living under a rock here a little bit. But
No,
I
it took
love,
me
yeah,
6 years to find, like, no, I tested so many paints, Scott. Like I tested lots of water-based paints. I tested so many things. You can use water-based, but it dissolves. So it just, I mean, this does too, but not at all in the same way. So I always say, I recommend product, like obviously you need to test it before you use
sure,
it for some big event, or if it's an important client. I always do a test run, whatever it is. Again, like there's different situations, different for different product, different
yeah,
situations that you
yeah.
need to test out. So the sugar cane is a paint that I've used with a lot of success, and I do like recommending it because it's really good and it's a really great alternative to other spray paints. So, and it took me years and years and years of testing. So that's why it's not like you lived under a rock. It's just not something that's marketed that way enough,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, I guess what I'll have to do is maybe when we release your episode, we always create a page for our guest. So you can go to theflowerpodcast.com and check out Ingrid's page, and we'll try to put a link there to this site because I
Yeah.
feel like I mean, that's a real problem. And what I appreciate about your effort is you had a problem and you found a solution. And is it perfect? Maybe. Yeah, who knows? But the thing about it is people can at least try it and see if it works for them in their situation. And I love that idea.
The thing is, there are a lot of people that reach out and they're like, well, there's still aerosol, or like, start to point fingers. And I always say, well, if I have to do this some way or the other, or maybe you don't have to, but like, give me, you want to just always use the best option that's out there. And so I'm always trying to find the best option. And if there's no better option, then that's my option. But at least it's better than the worst option,
Well, that's the
if that makes
thing. I mean, and I agree that, there is a degree, if you don't need it at all, then that's obviously the best option to go with nature, and that's always going to be the best option.
Yeah.
uh, but especially I feel when you're working with corporate clients, that may be sensitive to that, that's great, but then sometimes for branding purposes or things like that, there's certain colors that they want, and there may not be the flower to do it. And if there is a natural-ish alternative, I mean, I don't know, I'm first learning about it too, so I
Yeah.
feel like this is part of the process, and being
Yeah.
aware. I mean, I feel like that's the one thing, if anybody takes away from this conversation, I hope it's that, okay, natural is always great. And if you are getting into something new that's a trend, maybe we should look at it a little bit before we just totally go to the deep end and just embrace this trend. And just to make sure, because, we went from having one or two items that were bleached to having 40 items that were bleached almost overnight. I mean, it was like,
Absolutely.
how fast. And you almost think, a lot of times too, which makes me sad, is where this stuff is produced is places where they don't really care about the environment too much. And so
Yeah.
and so maybe by curving the demand for it, then maybe we can help the planet just a
I
whole
think you that was you encapsulated what I was trying to say perfectly. I think there's a reason why you do this for that you're the
lot. Thank you.
interviewer.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet of you. Ingrid, I know that you have had more than one book, and I would love to hear the story, because I know your first book kind of had its own little journey. And then I also know you're working on a new book. So tell us about your book, your first book. And I also want to hear about your new book coming out.
Right. So the first book was sort of by chance, because there was an editor, a Swedish. It actually launched in Sweden first, and because there was a woman, because I'm Swedish, I was doing an event with the Swedish Chamber of Commerce, and this woman saw my flowers at the event and asked me if I wanted to do a book. And she came up here, did some test shots, and then a month later, I had a book deal in Sweden, but not here, even though I'm this is where my studio is,
Isn't
but I'm
that
Swedish and
crazy?
my mom lives in Sweden. My
Yeah.
sister, like it was this really cool connection to my home country. And I was like sort of like this to them, like, oh, a famous like Swedish floor, for my fellow Swedes, it was like a big deal that someone was doing well in New York. So it blew up in Sweden, Germany, and then somehow Abrams found out about my book. Abrams is a publisher in America that does a lot of art books and design books and craft books, and asked me if I wanted to launch the book here. But that book had already been out for years, and it was actually called Brooklyn Flowers in Europe, and in Germany it was called Ingrid's Vintage Flowers. But here,
Oh, funny.
we basically, yeah. So here we basically added, I think it was like 50 pages, and shot new images that were more inspirational. And then we changed the cover and called it Handpicked. So it's sort of like a book and a half, if you may, because the first book was just had a lot less content for Europe, and then they added more content, but it looks completely different. So that book is called Handpicked, and that one is still like going strong on Amazon. And yeah, and then Abrams actually reached out a couple of years ago now, because time just goes by so fast. And it's been taking longer than it was supposed to because of the pandemic, but it must be at least 2-3 years now. They asked me if I could do a second book, because the first book did really well. And so we just discussed concepts, and they pretty much let me do whatever I wanted. So
That's awesome.
so I mean, they still wanted to be part of my story, because people actually read the book, the first book, like back to back. They'll read the story. I thought it was just like, oh, okay, beautiful pictures of flowers, but I get so many emails about people that actually read the whole book and find it
That's awesome.
inspiring. Yeah, because there are a lot of people out there that are digging, like diving into floristry without having like a traditional um, education in it. I still think it's very important, and I always continuously say this, that I think it's really important to learn how to condition flowers, because you can make the most beautiful flower arrangement in the world, but if the flowers are going to be dead tomorrow, then that's sort of, useless, pointless. So
Sad.
I see a lot of florists, because I have a lot of people. I mean, sometimes we have a 15-person team here, and I've trained a lot of florists come in here that charge, top rate, and come in and will literally kill the flowers because they don't know how to cut stem, they don't know how to cut a rose, they don't know how to condition. So I just want to put in that little parenthesis that even though I do encourage people to like sort of follow me in my footsteps, not knowing that much about flowers when I started working with flowers, I still do highly encourage people to learn flower conditioning and flower care. But with that said, the next book is going to be more about my connection to people and flowers. Basically, I invited people that have influenced me over the years in my field of work. People that I've worked with, such as like the Winter Antique Show, this young antique expert. So I go to each person's environment. It could be a studio, it could be their home with flowers, but the flower arrangement is based off of their like personality and a concept. And so
Oh,
they're not
interesting.
overly conceptual. It's just more of a feeling like that person evokes. So it's basically tastemakers and flowers, and it's sort of inspirational, but there is a techniques chapter where I do share this like these methods. I mean, chicken wire, the twig method, watermelon. I did that agro wool, but they're calling it something else. And just like some small installations. That's in the back of the book. But then there's like the bulk of the book is like about my connection to people and flowers and the joy
Mhm.
it really brings to like share flowers with people. So there's like a chemical reaction when people give and receive flowers, and that's what I think is so special about working with flowers. So, and then the people, I mean, it's just other people inspire me, and I always try to look at art and design and fashion and not just look at other people's arrangements, because there's Instagram. And when Instagram was new, it was super fun and exciting, but now it's like it almost causes anxiety, and to come up
Mm.
with something new and fresh, it's just always better to look in architecture or look at art. Or so the inspiration we've used is more um, based on these people rather than like pictures of other flower arrangements.
Well, I can't wait to see that book because
Yeah.
I feel like, especially because of pandemic, especially in New York and just that whole area that you're in, people crave that connection now more than ever.
Yep.
And getting to hear the store, see the flowers and the interpretation, if you will, of what really connects with them, I think is what an incredible read will be.
It's been fun.
Yeah, well,
I mean, there's a good balance of like timeless arrangements. It's not like I don't want it to seem like they're like overly conceptual when I say conceptual,
sure.
but like we're always trying to find a balance. So it's a very mixed types of people. So some of the arrangements are more like my traditional style, and then there's some more like a little bit weird, and then there's some dried, and just like a good mix of stuff. So I was kind of like a little stressed out because things don't flow perfectly like an Instagram feed where everything like matches each other, but like it's some different people, different looks. So that's what I
Yeah.
like about the book. Yeah.
Well, and I think though that's okay because I mean, we have the same struggle because I know that if you're an event company or a wedding professional, a branding expert, a wedding planner, like you can look at some feeds on Instagram and you can see, wow, if you just slide up the screen and just flip it up just to kind of, I don't know, kind of see the overall color pattern, it's amazing the nuance that gets introduced as it goes from one color to the next. And the thing about it is on the podcast, on our Instagram feed, every week we're sharing a story of someone totally different.
Right.
And it's hard, and we don't have that sort of polished color, branding feed. Maybe some do, but for me, I'm like, I think it's important to tell the story of the person and to tell why would you expect this week's guest to look like last week's guest and transition
Right.
in? And I think that and I don't think it's over conceptual. I think you're just making those arrangements or those designs personal to the person that you're telling a story about or you're connecting with.
Again, you just always just hit
Yeah.
the nail on.
Well,
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I just think it's really cool, and I think people will definitely be ready for a book like that this year. Hopefully, it'll get out before the end of the year. So anyway,
Yeah,
well,
no, this
I
it's
can't
gonna
wait.
launch. It's supposed to launch. It was supposed to launch earlier, but I had a few people I had to shoot that got canceled.
Well, sure.
One of them was really, there were, like some really important people to me that I wanted to include. I had booked everyone before the pandemic, so but what I added in were actually some people that were working with our boxes, so we could like include that concept in
Oh,
the book too. So we
well,
have three
great.
people, yeah, that really love working with the boxes that made arrangements. So we shot that as well.
Oh,
So that's
that's
really
so great.
fun. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's going to be so much fun. Well, okay. So I know you've had a really long day, and I appreciate your patience with today. I always like to end with my one question about advice, and it can either be advice that someone's given you, or advice that you would like to hand down to the people who follow you, or the people that are listeners.
So wait, so are the people florists or want to aspiring florists?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that question because really, um, I it doesn't really matter to me. And the thing is because sometimes a piece of advice could be a mindset or could be personal that maybe help make a difference in your life. And
I
I
know
feel
exactly though. I
okay,
know what I want to say.
okay, great.
I regardless of if you're a florist or like just a hobbyist, if you may, I think the one of my the advice that I use daily with people working with flowers is not to be afraid and to ask questions and to just relax and enjoy it is something I have to tell myself almost every day now because it's been such a struggle, like it's been difficult. And to just remember that these are flowers and they're here to like just provide beauty, like there's something that's magical, like that we have that gift from somebody. I don't know where, but it's a really special thing. And I have to remind myself because sometimes, you're just going into work, but I actually will remind myself how lucky I am to be working with flowers. And sometimes I'm scared. Like I want everything to be perfect, like it's part of like today's, living in today's society. Basically, I think that we have to show everything and everything has to be perfect. And I just feel like we need to relax a little bit. And flowers aren't, it should be fun and we should enjoy them. Because there's something really special about that fleeting moment. And that's why flowers are so special.
Mm,
And yeah, I
yeah.
think just don't be afraid. Relax, just really relax. Because I've been, like I mentioned before, I've been talking to a lot of people on the phone and creating these videos, and I just tell people like, and the one word of advice that they really appreciate is just relax and try to have fun. And it can be something really special if you just like let go of those boundaries, basically. And that's how I started working with flowers. So
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I know that so many times people, and I don't know if it's a result of social media or if it's a result of some kind of expectation that you spend money on something like flowers and you don't want to ruin them or you don't want to,
right.
you rob yourself of that joy. And I love that because it's just so many times it's just fear. I mean, it really is fear that just kind of
Right.
takes hold. And I
But fear
appreciate
always
that.
gets in our way, it's
Mm,
always in our way, fear. But there was one more advice I wanted to give to like florists
yeah,
that want to do this in this industry, and that is to know what you're worth and to charge. I'm sure you've heard this advice many times, but there's so many florists
please.
out there giving their work away for free, and it just breaks my heart. And I just think it's not great for the industry either. So I think everyone really, I think we just need to know what we're worth. I think we need to really just charge what we're supposed to charge. Flower School does have a class where they teach business, the business of flowering, and I do think it's important to learn the math and know how to charge clients. And it's really difficult, but there's many times where I turn away clients because they don't you want to make sure you're meeting their expectations, and if
Right.
if you're, yeah, I just think that's a really important lesson, which I learned really quickly because I just, I had to pay my bills, and New York is so expensive that
Right.
there wasn't really any other option, to be honest. Like, this wasn't a hobby for me. It wasn't just because I love flowers, it's because I figured, okay, I get to do something I really love, but it will also hopefully pay the bills. And yeah, we learned the best way to learn is the hard way, and that's how I learned, from giving away my flowers too much. As a graphic designer, I was even worse because it was like there's no tangible thing. With flowers, at least I was like, you know what, I have to buy this stuff and it's really
Oh
expensive.
yeah.
So, so I learned the hard way, and I'm if anything, I know how to charge my clients and how to set expectations, and I think that's another very important thing to think about before you get into this field.
Mm. No, I appreciate that too, because that's really good. I know I've had so many friends over the years that, um, like they try to stick to a budget or they try to stick to some recipes just to ensure that they're profitable. And then day of, they have the feeling like it needs to be more. They have the feeling like they need to add something. And so they go and blow the budget and spend some money on things that really, maybe I don't even know if they really needed. They just felt like it kind of gave them a security blanket.
Yeah.
And then I have other customers who were really good about sticking to their budget. And, and you just think, okay, at some point you got to pay the bills. And
Right.
so it's so hard. And even if you have a supportive partner or someone else that kind of helps with your personal overhead, right? That's great. But I often think, gosh, what you shouldn't be conducting and pricing your business based on that. You should doing it like it's your own business, like it's your own rent you're paying or mortgage you're paying or whatever it is. And
Right.
because you don't want to, I don't know, it's too easy to undervalue what you do, and then it's too hard. It's just too
I
hard what
think
we do.
especially now, I've had a few clients that reach out and want stuff super cheap. And I'm like, why would you be doing that now? And we're talking about pretty substantial companies that, high-end brands. And they've been asking us, can you do it for like ridiculous low? And it was really hard because it's a brand I really love and I've worked with, but we just said no. Nope. I'm so sorry. I can't do it at that price. And it felt really good. It feels good to say no sometimes because otherwise you're just going to give your stuff away for free, and then you're just going to feel like not great about yourself, honestly. So I think it's important to say no when you can.
Yeah. Well, especially, I always feel like, and you can tell me what you think. I always feel like once you open that door, you can never close it again. There's
No,
always a
exactly.
reason to lowball something. And so, I mean, I guess you agree.
No, I agree 100%. Like, I just think it's surprising during these difficult times that, companies are going to small business and asking them to give stuff away almost for free. I just think it's weird and not great.
Yeah, that's a soapbox I'd love to jump on, but probably not for this episode of the Flower
No,
Podcast.
no,
So,
no, no.
Ingrid, thank you so much for being on the Flower Podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy we finally got to speak.